So James Cameron's Terminator 2 Judgment Day was one of the biggest action blockbusters of all time, grossing $523 million worldwide off a steep $100+ million budget, and with groundbreaking digital visual effects revolutionizing filmmaking and delivering Cameron's signature mix of emotional storytelling, innovative action sequences, and thematic weight, it's hailed as possibly being his best film. And with it being such an enduring classic, it has been heavily milked on home video for over 25 years, and with so many releases from analog to digital to full high definition and beyond, it is a fascinating journey to see how T2 has evolved with the home video format, and with the ultra high definition 4K release giving fans a very controversial revisionist look, there couldn't be a better time to explore the various home video releases of one of the very best sequels ever made. Now, following on from his theatrical debut on July 3rd, 1991, the film hit analog video formats of VHS and Laserdisc that December. There was nothing much special about the VHS release until the following year, when a limited edition box set containing both the Terminator and Terminator 2 was released, featuring a 24-page full-color book with photos and production information, along with a third VHS with the making of the Terminator films featurette. Both films were included in widescreen letterbox presentations with a holographic image on the black vinyl box cover. In 1995, these two tapes would be re-released in a simple gold slipcover, with only trailers for each film accompanying them, and this was the earliest release I owned for both movies until the eventual advent of DVD. Now, the Laserdisc format was where T2 was originally allowed to flourish. The format, which featured analog video with uncompressed digital audio, was graced with a silver box set presenting the film in its theatrical widescreen format, with a 31-minute making-of featurette, an 8-page booklet, and an essay written by Jim Cameron. This was apparently limited to only 2,000 copies from Live Home Entertainment, but would not be the most prized edition to be put out on this format. There was a bare-bones widescreen release in what was generally referred to as a pan and scan edition. Both Cameron's The Abyss and True Lies would specifically have director-approved pan and scan editions, but that term is generally reserved for films shot with anamorphic film and lenses, where the rectangular frames would have to be cropped on the sides and appropriately panned and scanned across the wide frame to cover the widescreen action in order to accommodate the more square 4x3 television frame. Now, Cameron wasn't a fan of shooting films anamorphically due to the difficulty with the special lenses, the troubles they cause with visual effects, and various cost-prohibitive aspects of it. Thus, with The Abyss onwards to Titanic, he would shoot on Super 35mm, which would allow him to recompose his shots to accommodate either a CinemaScope widescreen presentation or a 4x3 format for the standard television screen of the time. Thus, the widescreen version does mask off image information for the artistic choice of 2.35:1 or 2.40:1, but that doesn't mean the 4x3 frame version exposes all of the frame. Instead, the fully exposed frame is recomposed and blown up from the original negative to adapt to the director's choice for each presentation. This easily allows more creative freedom for the director and cinematographer, but has somewhat hindered the potential clarity of Terminator 2 since it is a blown up image which can magnify grain and limit minute detail. Now, with that being said, the biggest release of this film on the Laserdisc format was the 1993 Special Edition box set that featured an extended cut of the film with 15 minutes of additional scenes and footage. This included a new Sarah Connor dream sequence with Kyle Reese, a new scene developing Miles Dyson's character with his family, John and Sarah removing the T-800 CPU chip to allow him to learn more human behavior, and various pieces throughout that enrich the experience of the narrative and its characters. This set also came with a ton of bonus content ranging from a featurette on the film's digital effects work to an audio commentary track assembled from interviews of cast and crew members, to the complete shooting script, 2 additional deleted scenes, teasers and trailers, and the complete storyboards. Also included was a wickedly awesome Guns N' Roses music video for You Could Be Mine, which is directed by Andy Morahan, Jeffrey Appleson, and special practical effects master Stan Winston. All of this and more made this one of the biggest releases of the format, and has been regarded as one of the best Laserdisc sets ever made. And the THX certified widescreen transfer here is just absolutely excellent, showing off a true filmic look with possibly as much detail as could be presented on the format. The colors are solid, never bleeding despite the numerous color washes of blue lighting or the vibrancy of the steelworks. Everything comes off beautifully, and with it being analog video, there's no worry of digital compression artifacts. The Dolby Digital surround track was also received very well, creating a very faithful and strong auditory experience for such an explosive blockbuster. Teamed up with Pioneer, the absolute premier brand in Laserdisc technology, this was utterly sought after as it went through several different pressings. Each one featured a different embossed T2 logo from silver to gold to blue to red. Ultimately, this was a superb set that any fan would have been elated to get their hands on. Now, at the latter end of the Laserdisc format, special squeeze discs were produced, featuring anamorphic video that would allow widescreen features to utilize more of the vertical resolution of the format. And strangely, the first LD squeeze disc for Terminator 2, released in September of 1996, used an incorrect non-color time print, resulting in a reportedly terrible, overly bright transfer that Cameron himself freaked out over and had pulled immediately. It was later reissued with a properly THX mastered print in early 1998. The final release of T2 on the LD format was just a few weeks after this, and of the widescreen theatrical cut with a remastered picture and Dolby Digital AC3 soundtrack. The film had been a major seller on this premier home video format, but the advent of DVD would soon see much more reach for James Cameron's 1991 blockbuster. Now, around this time, Live Entertainment was acquired by another company and restructured into Artisan Entertainment. Meanwhile, the French company Studio Canal gained the full rights to the now defunct Carolco Pictures film library, including Terminator 2, but forged a new deal to maintain distribution rights with Artisan in the United States. While the original DVD release in late 1997 was nothing really to speak of aside from a widescreen anamorphic transfer of the theatrical cut only, we later got the Ultimate Edition DVD in 2000, which poured over nearly all of the bonus features from the Laserdisc Special Edition box set, short of the Guns N' Roses music video due to issues with licensing rights. The audio options included 5.1 tracks for both DTS and Dolby Digital EX surround sound. Now, the transfer of the Ultimate Edition DVD is unfortunately a bit problematic in retrospect, containing a fair amount of edge enhancement, which artificially sharpens the image, creating harsh, sometimes jagged edges to objects and people on screen. Contrast is also punched up a bit, which can obscure some finer details. Color representation is a fair balance between pure blues that are heavily used throughout and the warmer colors seen in daylight sequences. Yet due to the contrast increase, it does force more color saturation in many cases. However, the most intriguing thing here is the framing and aspect ratio. When compared to later transfers on DVD and Blu-ray, the image appears to be vertically squished a bit, and the framing is cropped in a bit more. Considering this was still in the first few years of mastering for DVD and seeing how best to utilize the capacity and compression for the format, I can give this transfer a little bit of latitude, but it did age quite quickly and lose a lot of its luster from the reviewers of the time within the next few short years. And this release also included a brand new, further extended cut of the film, typically referred to as the Ultimate Edition cut, as in one fairly unnecessary scene of the T-1000 searching through John Connor's room and finding letters to and from his mother. However, most enlightening is the film's future coda ending, which Cameron said did not fit the style and tone of the final film. Test screening audiences disliked it, and I surely agree that it feels severely out of place. Yet it's nice to give the fans this option, albeit hidden with an Easter egg on the disc, so that they could see all possible cuts of the movie. And calling it the Ultimate Edition certainly did seem appropriate at the time, but of course Artisan Entertainment had to eventually capitalize on the impending release of Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines by assembling their Extreme Edition DVD set in 2003. Issued as a 2-disc set with a fairly ill-conceived metal slipcover that ruined your keepcase, this was packed with all new special features. The most prominent was a scene-specific commentary with James Cameron and co-writer William Wisher, as a very informative track with both jockeying for their mic time, but gives you a lot of insight into the development and production of T2. Furthermore, we got a documentary about how the film pushed forward the evolution of digital effects work, with many prominent ILM artists and other filmmakers chiming in on the subject. Also, a brand new montage of on-set production footage was included, and some Microsoft Windows-based content added onto disc 2. This transfer was sourced from a new 1080p high-definition scan, and the results are far superior to the Ultimate Edition. First off, there is no edge enhancement or contrast manipulation present. Secondly, the detail and strength of the image is much more solid, with a lessening of color saturation and a tad bit more green shift in the prominent blue photography in the film. It's also likely that the bitrate and compression quality was improved by evidence of the clarity present throughout the entire transfer. This far more accurately reflects the presentation of film with the depth of detail and avoidance of tampering with sharpness and contrast. Audio-wise, the DTS track was removed in favor of just a Dolby Digital 5.1 EX track. This was likely due to the space taken up by a new interactive graphical commentary track and a Dolby headphone audio track. Most accounts seem to favor the DTS track for the Ultimate Edition disc over the Dolby Digital one as being more spacious and punchier with its dynamics. And oddly, the main version on this disc is the special edition with the theatrical cut available through an Easter egg on one of the menus. Why Artisan kept doing stuff like this is beyond me, but the Cameron and Wisher commentary is synced to the special edition only. The Extreme Edition definitely offers a lot of fresh content with a much improved transfer that was well welcomed. And at this juncture, Artisan Entertainment would be acquired by Lionsgate for a $220 million sum, and all the later North American home video releases of Terminator 2 would be under their banner. Thus, this segues us into the high-definition age of home media. First off, rarely known was the digital VHS format that debuted in 1998, but would fizzle out by 2005. And yes, Terminator 2 was given a 1080i release on this format in 2002, a year before the Extreme Edition DVD. It apparently still used some edge enhancement in what was reportedly a better presentation than the Ultimate Edition DVD and carried over the DTS audio track, and supposedly didn't quite measure up to other DVHS titles at the time. Also, the film did appear in the ill-fated HD DVD format, but only in the UK and select European countries, with little to speak of overall. Lionsgate instead chose to follow the path of Blu-ray. Now, the first Blu-ray release of Terminator 2 in North America was crammed onto a Blu-ray 25 disc, which left no room for a lossless audio track, and all reports say that the video transfer wasn't nearly as impressive as it could have been. Thus, in 2009, the Skynet edition was issued on a much more appropriate BD50 disc, which did allow for a lossless audio format and a DTS HD Master Audio 6.1 soundtrack, and could allow for a better video bitrate. However, the volume of bonus features crammed onto the single disc, and that it does contain the theatrical Special Edition, and Ultimate Edition cuts did limit the film's presentation on that front. And in comparison to the Extreme Edition DVD, they appear to be sourced from the same transfer, as color is represented very closely between them, as well as the framing overall. It is a generally good looking transfer, but digital noise reduction was applied here, which smudges out the film grain and various textures on screen. It's far away from DNR disasters like the Ultimate Hunter edition of Predator, where everyone looks like a wax figure and every texture was vehemently scrubbed away. Yet this left a lot of room for improvement, but the aforementioned DTS HD track made the film sound better than ever before, with great spatial dynamics and strong low-end rumbles. But some of the softer dialogue could be a little too low in the mix at times. Still, the format delivered more up to expectations on the sonic front, showcasing a strong, lossless audio track. And while it was a better visual presentation than ever before, some stringent Blu-ray enthusiasts still desired something better. So ahead of the theatrical release of Terminator Genisys in 2015, T2 was re-released on Blu-ray with a new packaging and digital copy redemption code. This was a fairly quiet release, as it wasn't a straight repackage, but a slightly improved version. Essentially, it excised a couple of special features such as the audio commentary, script mode, picture-in-picture storyboards, and other interactive features to open up more disk space. This allowed Lionsgate to encode the film at a higher bitrate, in addition to then removing the digital noise reduction present on the previous release. It doesn't provide a huge leap in quality, but when compared up close, you can see more natural film grain and slightly more detail throughout. Furthermore, a new 5.1 DTS HD master audio track was presented here. Why the downgrade from 6.1 to 5.1 is unknown, but actually improves upon those moments of soft dialogue to be more clearly audible. Also, a new DTS headphone extract was created for those wanting a more personal, intimate audio experience that reportedly exceeds the previous Dolby branded headphone audio track. And generally speaking, many fans were more pleased with this transfer, yet with the aforementioned Super 35mm process, the depth of detail and clarity had never really blown anyone away. The Blu-ray transfers were clearly better than their DVD or Laserdisc predecessors, but knowing the extensive remasters or restorations being done over the years in both 2K and 4K resolutions, some fans still desired that huge leap forward. Thus now we get to the biggest discussion point of this whole video. The 2017 4K remaster released on 1080p and ultra high definition Blu-ray was prepared mainly with a 3D post-conversion in mind, and even the non-3D disc releases tell you as much. When I saw this in the cinema in RealD 3D, it looked pretty great with a far richer level of detail than ever before. When the photography actually had enough depth of field to offer, the 3D came off as quite impressive. Sadly, only really the opening future war sequence and the climax within the steelworks gave you that much depth of motion and action to make it worthwhile. The rest of the film generally had little to benefit from the 3D post-conversion. Now this transfer is already controversial for many reasons. The first of which is the thorough removal of nearly every bit of film grain through digital noise reduction. Surely it's a more advanced form of it, as many details in various faces and textures and clothing are seen far more sharply than ever before, but there can be an odd splotchiness to many faces. When you mix the sharp detail of this 4K scan with a significant increase in contrast, more subtle organic details do get obscured under stark lighting. This also affects some bright backgrounds that are now totally blown out, and in some darker scenes such as when the T-1000 arrives from the future, the contrast forces crushed blacks where shadow detail is utterly lost. Thankfully, this isn't a blanket problem throughout, as some scenes do look quite nice with an increase in contrast, and the rear projection backgrounds during the nighttime driving scenes no longer appear to be washed out. However, the scrubbing of the natural film grain and boosting contrast were done primarily for the 3D post-conversion process, with no thought put towards a separate 2D presentation, where organic detail is of key importance. Yet more immediately evident is the color timing that has been drastically altered in many cases. There's an intense push towards a more teal color palette overall, with scenes that are once warm daylight now looking much colder. Other daylight scenes do maintain a warmness, but the teal push is still present, with the more blue and purplish desert sky now being turned into a flat, duller green. And a lot of cinematographer Adam Greenberg's beautiful blue lighting in many cases has been saturated considerably, maybe just a bit too much for my own liking. All this, from the film grain scrub to the high contrast of the color shift, seems to be in an effort to make Terminator 2 look more like a film made in 2017 instead of 1991 for whatever reason. The only place I don't mind it as much is the Steelworks factory, with the blue and orange lighting contrasting off of one another very well. It does make the sequence all the more vivid, and details are not typically obscured by the picture alterations. The sparks look far more distinct than ever before, and you can really view a greater clarity the environment's depth of field. Now, interestingly, James Cameron seemingly approved several digital corrections to the film, including replacing stunt double Peter Kent's face with that of Arnold Schwarzenegger in several instances, and fixing the continuity issue of the windshield falling off the semi-truck, a bit when the T-1000 actually disposes of it. Also, several instances of exposed camera equipment and even camera crew have been digitally erased. I count these as positive alterations that may have gone fairly unnoticed before, but likely would have become far more evident in a 4K resolution presentation. But inviting even more controversy is that only the theatrical cut of the film was remastered for this release. Thus, the Ultra HD disc contains only that version. If you want to watch the extended cuts of T2 on the standard Blu-ray, it will shift from the new remaster with its new contrast and color timing to the old master with the original look and color timing. It's just too stark of a contrast and look to not be utterly distracting. It's also a bit of a blatant sign of laziness for this release. Again, this 4K remaster was prepared with a 3D presentation in mind, but at the time of this video's production, said 3D version has only been released by Studio Canal outside of the United States. Lionsgate has made no plans to release this in 3D on Blu-ray stateside. For as many times as T2 has been clearly milked for a profit on home video, I really can't believe that it would have been worthwhile to put the time and cost into remastering the extended cuts of the film, and even more so, possibly prepare a transfer tweak for a more proper 4K 2D presentation that retained the natural film grain and maybe dialed down the contrast a bit. This partially goes back to the Ultimate Edition DVD transfer that punched up the contrast, used digital edge enhancement, increased the color saturation, and created a less filmic look overall. While it gave that transfer a caveat of being relatively early in the age of digital home media, I cannot afford the same caveat to this transfer. There are numerous 4K Ultra HD releases of catalog titles such as Blade Runner, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Unforgiven, Leon the Professional, The Fifth Element, and even the 1957 film The Bridge on the River Kwai that have been given exemplary scores for their transfers. Meanwhile, this release of Terminator 2 on the same format has been given only moderate scores for all the reasons I've noted here, and some have been maybe a bit generous according to many fans. Through my research, I can't find any consensus as to a truly definitive presentation of Terminator 2. Surely Laserdisc enthusiasts will likely prize the THX Special Edition or the Rear Anamorphic Squeeze Edition, especially with a well-tuned video and surround sound setup. On DVD, the Extreme Edition is clearly the winner, as the picture quality alone wipes out the Ultimate Edition, despite the loss of the DTS audio track. When it comes to HD, there are going to be complaints about each version. The Skynet Edition has its DNR and bitrate shortcomings, 2015 release gets a slight uptick with a higher bitrate and no DNR, but is still limited in its detail. The new 4K remaster is something fans will either outright have no taste for, or might warm up to over time. It does have its pluses in its increase in detail and clarity, as well as some minor positives to its revisionist color timing and contrast fiddling. In terms of extras, the Blu-ray has a solid, if maybe abbreviated retrospective on the film that does hit all the usual beats, with some new pieces of information mixed into it. Yet ultimately the remaster is vastly disappointing with its lazy adherence to just slapping the 3D prepared version onto a 2D presentation, and not bothering to remaster the extended cuts of the film, leaving only the theatrical version on the actual Ultra HD disc. Now, James Cameron has had some of his other films undergo similar HD revisionism, including a very teal-looking transfer for the original Terminator, and many fans having objections to the color palette changes to his 1986 blockbuster Aliens. Considering Cameron was very much involved in the 3D conversion process on this, and promoted its release very actively, clearly there's a lot to be said about how he views these classic films in retrospect. Still, fans can enjoy any version they choose on any format that is available to them, and make their own determinations about the legacy of Terminator 2 Judgment Day on home video. It made major splashes on Laserdisc and DVD, but has struggled to fully nail a widespread appreciation of high-definition formats, yet the history will undoubtedly continue onwards, and let's hope a future release will surely blow us all away. So guys, if you enjoyed this look back at Terminator 2 on home video, give me your thumbs up, and I hope you have a great time. So take care, bye bye.